Welcome to another exciting and fun edition of The Fueling Station, the podcast dedicated all to the wonderful things that happen within retail fueling. And we're actually live here in Las Vegas at the 2022 PEI NACS Show. So if you hear some commotion in the background, some people may be coming up and talking to us because we're right here in the middle of the show floor. We thought it'd be a great place to do an episode from. I'm your host, Ed Kammerer. I'm normally joined by my co-host, my Petroleum partner, Jonathan Stong, but apparently Johnny's a little bit under the weather and didn't make the trip to Vegas. So I brought along another compadre. You've heard him before. He's a frequent contributor to the fueling station, Dan Boyle. Welcome, Dan.
Glad to be back. I'm glad I got the invite one more time.
Absolutely. So we're live here in Las Vegas at the PEI NACS Show. It's the annual trade show where everybody in the petroleum industry gets together. We talk about things, we show new products that we're developing, and it's really a good time to, get a finger on the pulse of the industry. So here at the OPW booth, we've had a lot of customers, a lot of marketers, distributors come through, and everyone wants to talk about different things. But one of the key topics that has been talked about and they've had questions about is some recent changes to API coding. Those of you who don't know API is American Petroleum Institute, and really what they do is they set the standards for the whole oil industry. Downstream, upstream, midstream. API has been around for over 100 years, so they're really the, like I said, they set the standards, the guidelines for everything that has to do with the petroleum and oil industry. And why we bring this up and why it's become a hot topic is they actually set the standards, the color coding for how you identify the type of product that you're going to sell at your station. We do it with different colors. Traditionally, unleaded would be white, premium would be red, mid-grade would be blue, diesel would be yellow. And so there's kind of some requirements as far as you have to identify what the product is in the tank. Not only a requirement, but also it helps identify and keeps people from cross-contaminating. Whereas a tanker driver will come up and he wants to make sure that you put the regular fuel in the regular tank and not in the diesel tank, and vice versa. So it's an important thing in the industry, the proper identification and coding of the fuel based on the color. But what they have done, API has recently updated what this color coding is, and they've kind of gone into a little bit more detail where now we don't just have to identify fuel as regular, but we actually have to identify the percentage of alcohol that's blended in that particular fuel that's going in that tank. So that's kind of an example. But I'll let Dan kind of talk a little bit more about some of these changes and how they're impacting marketers and what marketers are going to have to do to kind of meet this new requirement that's coming down the road. I think by the end of the year, this goes into effect, correct?
Yeah, end of the year is whenever most states are going to start enforcing that. We've had some good conversations with some of the states that are kind of leading the charge. California's always out in front. They've always got their finger on the pulse. And then Tennessee and Kentucky have been the two that have really jumped on and kind of started leading the charge, which is what prompted us to go ahead and expand that product line for our one tags. So essentially what they came out and said is that there needs to be 3 points of identification now on those spill buckets. So you can use the ring, you can use the lid, and then one other area. And that one other area, like you said, now has to include more detail. It used to be, let's go back to 2019, if you had unleaded regular fuel, it was identified by a white lid with a black cross. And so, and that works well, and I know that, and you know that. But if you don't know that, you have to go in there with kind of like a symbol chart and go say, okay, well, what does a cross mean? What's a cross with a circle mean? So I really like what API did with this, where they go in and it's you have to identify the type of fuel, so either gasoline, diesel, diesel exhaust fluid. It needs to be spelled out on there, the type of fuel that it is. And just like you said, if there's any ethanol content or no ethanol content, it needs to be spelled out. So the way we're going to do that is with E0 or E15 or up to E10, E85. So now we put the color on there. We've got some really great descriptors. It's spelled out right there on the tag. And the states seem to really appreciate that we've come up with this and how much detail we've put into. We really went multiple phone calls with some of those states to make sure that we were checking the boxes that they were looking to see, to aid in helping people from cross-contamination and making sure that you're getting the same like fuels in like tanks.
Gotcha. So basically, instead of just the old days, you could paint your lid white.
Right.
And that would comply with identifying what type of fuel is. But now you have to identify not only the cover, but the ring as well, to make sure when that cover is removed, it actually gets put back on the right ring.
Right.
Because we've seen that happen, especially in the winter. In a lot of places, a snowplow will come in and remove all the covers will get wiped out, and they want to make sure that the regular unleaded cover gets back on the regular unleaded spill bucket by identifying that ring or an area outside the ring, and the same as with diesel and premium fuel. But also inside the spill bucket as well needs to be identified.
Yeah, because if that lid, like you said, if that lid's gone or somebody comes by, takes off all three lids so they can get, try and maybe even speed up their own process. If you don't remember which lid came from where and you look down, there's nothing in there to identify. So I think it's going to go a long way towards that. Plus, one of the things that we do on our edge line of spill buckets is the powder coated rings and covers, because the rattle can is great. It'll get you the color you need, but it only lasts so long whenever you're going in there with a can of paint. So the powder coat's extremely long lasting, super bright. It gives you the color that you need that matches the API color code. So really well suited to kind of handle the new API standard.
And what's interesting is, when API made these changes to the standard, they kind of did it with not a lot of communication. There wasn't a lot of people that knew about it. All of a sudden, we had people that were marketing in Kentucky, for example, 7-Elevens or Kroger's or Costco's, and came to us and said, hey, did you know that API is changing the color code and that they're requiring additional identification of the spill containers? And we were like, no, that was kind of news to us.
We're on it.
So we scrambled for a solution, but I guess, kind of the takeaway here is if you're a marketer or distributor and you're listening to this, make sure you check with your state and let your customers know that API has made a change to the color coding, or not the color coding, but the identification process in identifying the fuels at your station, and that they may start enforcing this. I know some states have said, hey, you got to the end of the year, and after that, if you don't meet these identification requirements, guess what? You're red tagged.
That's right.
And you can't sell fuel.
Can't use that tank.
As a marketer, the last thing you want is to not to be able to sell fuel. So if you're listening to this, please go to the API website, see what the changes are, check with your distributor, or if you have any questions, you can certainly get a hold of somebody at OPW, and we can let you know. We can send you the chart that shows all the new symbols, the new coatings, and then look for some new identification tags coming from OPW to help you meet those requirements by API.
Yeah, we'll be doing those a couple of ways too, and it's important to understand what the state specifically, whatever state you're marketing in, what they want, because even though API has updated these color codes, each individual state doesn't necessarily have the same regulation on what they want to be seen or to be shown. So ours will be, you can either get an adhesive version where you can slap it on top of the lid to put even more information up top. And then we're also going to have the dual-sided available to hang inside the bucket. So even if that lid is gone, somebody takes the lid off, it gets hit by a snowplow, you go to look in, there is a bright tag that tells you exactly the type of fuel that is in there and how much ethanol it contains. Whether it's raised fuel, diesel exhaust, vapor recovery, we've got them all covered. Yeah,
and I guess we can just clear that up. API sets the standard, but it's up to each state individually how they're going to enforce it.
That's right.
And what they're going to require. So
that's right.
But so you can check out the API, the new coding, meet with your state, someone that with the UST division, and they can kind of help guide you in what that state is going to require moving forward. So, Dan, hey, thanks for joining me. I know it's been an exciting show. It's always fun to be in Las Vegas. We've had a lot of great conversations with our customers.
Absolutely.
And again, what we wanted to, the whole idea of this coding and this additional identification is to prevent cross-contamination of fueling. Because the last thing you want is a tanker truck to dump 5,000 gallons in your diesel tank, because he just spoiled that whole...
Really slows down operations.
Really slows everything down quick. So with that, talk about cross-contamination. a sister company to OPW, Civicon, has also come out with, they've actually been out for a couple years. They're also here at the show, and they have come up with an electronic way of preventing cross-contamination where the driver will not be able to drop fuel in the tank or in that spill bucket unless that actually is the proper bucket. So again, we're here live on the trade show floor, 2022 PEI NACS, live in Las Vegas, and also here with me, I thought, talking about cross-contamination, here also at the OPW booth is a sister company, Civicon. They make all the valves and fittings that goes on the tanker trucks. You've probably heard of them, you've seen their stuff. If you're in the industry, everyone knows Civicon. But I thought a great person to talk about cross-contamination and the things that Civicon are doing to help prevent it as well is my friend Scott Mehman from Civicon. So Scott, I know Civicon for the last couple of years has been working on a kind of electronic system to prevent, to help drivers keep from putting the wrong fuel in the wrong tank. So tell me a little bit about, COPS or Civic Command or whatever you guys are calling it these days.
Sure, Ed. Well, I first want to say thanks a lot for inviting me over to speak about this today. So what Civic Command is a digital cargo tank electronic platform, and how it works to prevent cross drops in that application is it's equipped with special sensors. As the fuel is being loaded at the load terminal, we're able to identify the product that's actually going on the cargo tank itself. That's part one in preventing cross drops. So we actually understand what is actually on the trailer when we load it. Now, out there on the delivery side, when it comes to placing that product that's loaded into storage, it starts with being able to electronically identify what's being held in storage. So we're able to do this by using specially programmed RFID tags. And these are affixed on the underground storage tanks just below the fill collar, and they just live in the spill buckets. Okay?
Gotcha.
So what happens when
so you don't even need a brand new spill bucket. It's something you can add to an existing spill bucket.
Absolutely not. The RFID tags are easy to install, and when I say easy to install, 2 minutes or less, we can affix that tag. They're low cost, they're very durable, so they just live in the spill bucket. So when the transport comes on site to make that delivery, how this works up there in the cargo tank is also our specially designed load heads that we manufacture right there at the plant in Cincinnati. They have a special locking feature, so when we come along with our drop adapter, we call them drop elbows in the business, they also have a little radio pack that's equipped on the drop elbow, and when we cam on to that underground storage tank, the RFID tag sends out a signal to the radio pack on the drop elbow, and then it transmits wirelessly back to the trailer, and it will allow access only to the products that is stored in that underground storage tank, keeping drivers from making delivery mistakes like cross drop.
So who's, what are the customers that would be interested in this? Who does this system benefit?
No, that's another good question. You would have to ask yourself, have I spent dollars on delivery errors like cross drops? If you have, they're expensive, and they can range from very inexpensive cleanup costs to very expensive cleanup costs when we're talking about engine repairs and that sort of thing. But anybody that's in the industry, if you're a retailer that has had pain and exposure, bad press from cross drops, they would be a candidate. Obviously, if you're a cargo tank fleet, regardless of your size, they would definitely benefit that are making retail deliveries in the industry.
Perfect. Sounds to me like a great solution to the problem of cross-contamination. So again, we're here live at PEI NACS, and one of the hot topics that people have been talking about this year is cross-contamination, how to prevent cross-contamination, how to identify your spill containers, your underground storage tanks to receive the proper fuel. Again, you want to make sure that your unleaded fuel is going in your unleaded tank and your diesel fuel is going in your diesel tank. So if you're a marketer or a fuel delivery, a fleet trucking company, it sounds like Civic Command is the great option if you want to prevent that from happening.
Absolutely, and we're excited to be here at the PEI NACS Show, and we're really looking forward to having these conversations with retailers, with end user fleets, and just continue to have, we're in the fluids handling division of OPW, so we want to, we're good stewards of the environment, and it's all about safety and accuracy and efficiency.
Gotcha. So again, if you want to find out any more additional equipment or any more additional information, on anything from OPW retail as far as the spill buckets and the identification of the spill buckets, or the Civic Command, it's really easy to get to, opwglobal.com, and you can go either to retail fueling or to the Civicon portion of the website, and all the information will be there, and you can contact any of us. And as we talk about all the time on this show, we love talking about petroleum, we love talking about gas, and we love talking about this industry. So Scott, hey man, thanks for stopping by. I know it's been a great show. We've had a lot of people come through the booth, and it's great to be in person with our customers again. And again, can't thank you enough for stopping by and hopping on the fueling station with us.